You have chosen to be born into the most challenging virtual reality in the universe. At this moment, your avatar body is developing. You may come and go at any time during this 9-month period as you adjust to the feeling of being in a physical form. You may ask questions from within your developing avatar, or you may come and go between here and the spirit world as you adjust to the density of the slow-moving material world known as Earth. You may also skip ahead and observe yourself playing in previous and upcoming games. However, once you are born and enter into the Earth playing field, you will gradually enter into what we refer to as the deep sleep, forgetting everything you now know. Your mission, which you have been preparing for in countless game lifetimes, is to find a way to access your true consciousness, your awakened self while playing the Earth game. In your upcoming game, you have chosen a female avatar body. After you are born, you will not remember that your inner world programs your game experiences. For this reason, it is suggested that you practice moving your consciousness from the sensory outer world into your inner world of feeling and focus. You will be able to access transformative technologies, which will assist you in developing a higher level of intuition and emotional intelligence. Though you will not be conscious of these experiences after you are born, you will retain your cellular memory. You have chosen to play in the outer world of sensory experience. Though there are countless alternate and parallel realities, you have chosen a highly probable experience that begins when you are 17 years old on a geology field trip with your assigned hiking partner, Matthew. Matthew is also a high school senior. He is tall and athletic with dark hair and grayish-blue eyes. He is handsome, popular, and comes from a very wealthy family. You may now choose your perception of Matthew. How strange it is to be 17 and facing death. The tranquility of the desert night, with its vast array of glittering stars and the merest crescent moon, belies the imminent danger of hypothermia. There is little comfort in the fact you won't be dying alone. You barely know the boy sitting by your side. Matthew had been chosen as your hiking partner by your geology teacher, but you'd never spoken until today. It started as a weekend camping trip to Canyonlands National Park with 11 other high school seniors. You left Friday at noon, and after 3 hours on paved roads and another bumpy hour down a dirt path, your old yellow school bus rumbled into your campsite spewing noxious black clouds of exhaust that quickly dissipated into the crystal-clear evening sky of southern Utah. By midday, the temperature is 70 degrees. The sky is clear, deep blue, and so incredibly immense. You hike through fields of coarse grass, sage, and prickly pear, and along dried stream beds, gathering rock samples for your class. You both scramble up and down over rugged outcrops that look like megalithic statues, frozen waves rising and subsiding in the vastness of the high desert, an indelible reminder that this had once been an ocean floor. The trail weaves through the desert, disappearing into a jumble of cliffs and ravines, then reappearing in the massive presence of red sandstone walls, laddered with cool crevices and fissures. As you emerge from the dark interior of the canyon labyrinth and sit down just a few feet apart, Matthew takes off his sunglasses as he slumps down onto the warm red rock surface to rest. It's the first time you've seen him up close. Though it makes no sense at all, and you wouldn't admit it in a million years, when he looks at you, you feel as if you've known him forever. Matthew smiles, and not only do you suddenly realize you've been staring, you are instantly mesmerized by the fact that he has dimples, and, as if you have no will of your own, you stare a little bit longer. Blinking, you return his smile a bit awkwardly, draw in a deep breath, and look up at the sky. "It's so beautiful," you say, hoping Matthew will follow your skyward gaze, rather than watching your cheeks turn blazing red. "Yeah, I love it here," he says warmly. You pull your knees close to your chest. Ironically, your backpack has the initials YOLO, you only live once, displayed across the front. But something about the last few minutes is bringing that concept into question. What if people actually live more than once? And if you are somehow remembering the feeling of Matthew, can he remember you as well? After a few moments of reflecting on the fact that your day just keeps getting better and better, you open your eyes and turn your head to see Matthew smiling at you as he hands you a bottle of water. "We need to get going," he says, and though you nod in agreement, it seems unnecessary to rush. Matthew points to a trail in the canyon below and says, "That's a much nicer trail than the one we're supposed to be on. Do you want to take that one instead?" "Sure," you say, enjoying the fact that he asked your opinion, since you wouldn't have known the difference between one trail and another. As you both descend into a deep canyon labyrinth, time seems to stand still. Surrounded by earthen walls, you can only see the vibrant sapphire sky overhead, with no indication of the sun's proximity to the horizon. Emerging from the enclosed space, a profound and hypnotic beauty appears before you, the sun falling slowly toward the horizon, washing deep oranges and fiery reds over the land. You stand staring for a moment, and then, as if awakening from a trance, you say in a slight panic, "Matthew, will we make it back on time?" "Don't worry. I know this trail really well. We'll make it." Matthew sounds confident, but you notice a certain urgency in his walk. Wherever the land is fairly flat, you run instead of walking. You scramble over boulder fields in your gradual ascent to the top of a high mesa, where red rock canyons rise majestically above the desert floor. Slanted rays drench blazing red rock walls with golden light, and shadows lengthen across the canyon, skating along the desert floor. The air is slightly cooler now, but doesn't breathe what is yet to come. As it grows darker, Matthew stops and says, "Hold on a sec," as he digs through his pack. "Shit, I forgot my glasses." "I can lead. Do you have a flashlight?" you say nervously. A guilty look passes over Matthew's face. "I don't. I was thinking this would just be a day hike. I didn't think to pack one." "It's okay. Let's just keep going." Until this point, you felt confident that Matthew would take care of everything, and if there was an emergency, he's a really fast runner and could have made it back to camp for help. But now it's up to you to get you both back safely. Anxiety blooming in your chest and flowing into every cell of your body, you take the lead, running from one rock cairn to the next. With iron legs you climb steep cliffs, the muscles in your thighs shaking with the effort. You try jogging through the fields, but can manage no more than a fast walk. The sky is now dark purple. The evening clouds are brushed over with shimmering gold, but there is just enough light to see the cairns up ahead. Despite exhaustion, you try to run as fast as you can from one cairn to the next. Then suddenly the horizon turns a soft sable, bringing to light 3 glittering stars and a new moon dangling by an invisible thread at the edge of the horizon. In moments, the sky and land become one. It's too dark to safely go any further. Your heart is frantically rushing in your chest and roaring in your ears as a roiling, swirling feeling makes you too dizzy to walk. Sitting side by side, you and Matthew silently watch more and more stars float out of the velvety darkness. As the temperature quickly drops, you pull on your sweater. It's oversized, warm, and cozy, and though you know the warmth won't last for long, you immediately feel better. Digging through your pack, you hand Matthew half of your peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
"Thanks, I'm starving,"
he whispers gratefully. Within minutes, the soft evening breeze is edged with a hard chill. "How cold do you think it's going to get tonight?" you say as you empty your backpack, then fumble with different ways to fold it.
"It'll probably drop below freezing. Do you know what that means?"
You know the answer, but you're desperately hoping Matthew has something in mind a little less dramatic than death by stupidity, the leading cause of death between the ages of 14 and 24, a statistic regularly quoted to you by your father. Of course, you ignored him as he was just being your dad, but now you're beginning to realize how easy it is to become a statistic.
"We could die from hypothermia,"
says Matthew, his voice low and apologetic. You involuntarily gasp a stuttering breath as tears silently stream down your cheeks. "Don't you think they'll look for us?" Matthew moves closer and puts his arm around you.
"I'm sure they will. They'll drive into town or wherever they can get a cell connection and call my dad. He'll fly down in his helicopter and use the searchlight, but they'll be looking at Canyon Rim, which is nowhere near here."
"Wow, your dad flies his own helicopter?" you ask lightly, hoping to change the topic.
"Yep,"
says Matthew in an exhausted tone, making it clear he doesn't particularly like his father.
"He learned to fly in Africa. I call him the Great White Hunter because he goes on safaris every year. And now we have the heads of dead animals hanging all over the walls of his study."
"Oh,"
"Yeah,"
says Matthew with a slight laugh. Then he draws you closer and says,
"I'm sorry. It's my fault."
his voice guilt-ridden.
"I never should have taken you off that trail."
You know he must be as frightened as you, feeling worse even, because he feels responsible for you. "It's okay," you say, squeezing his hand. "It was my choice too." As the night grows colder, the stars appear razor sharp. Your body, tingling and numb, begins shaking uncontrollably as the freezing air penetrates your bones, a fierce, constant pain drawing out the little warmth left in your body. And though Matthew moves to sit behind you, wrapping his arms tightly around you, you feel yourself sinking into the blackness of the night sky, drowning in stars as numerous and cold as falling snow, your body encased in ice, eyes wide open, staring. Nothing seems to exist but infinite galaxies of light and color blooming in your mind, pulling you forward with greater and greater intensity into an empty void of nothingness. Suddenly, Enveloped in darkness and with all the air squeezed out of your lungs, you travel at lightning speed down a long tube composed of dense gray light. With a whipping jolt, you find yourself sitting in a dimly lit room on a cold linoleum floor, gasping for breath. As your vision clears, various shapes gradually begin to emerge. A thin, flimsy mattress, coupled with a faded gray wool blanket, all of which are lying in a neat pile on a cheap plastic bed frame, screwed tightly into the floor. A piece of reflective metal is embedded in the wall above a small, rust-stained sink, and next to it sits a toilet with no lid. A gloomy light is cast by a single bulb in the ceiling, encased in a metal cage. High in a corner, a solitary security camera swivels slowly back and forth, systematically scanning the room. There is nothing else. No pictures, no windows, just whitewashed cement walls. After frantically pulling on the handle and beating on the door, it's obvious no one is coming to help you. You try yelling and waving your arms at the camera, and though you're certain you're being watched, no one responds as you anxiously pace back and forth like a caged animal. Finally, you give up, sit down on the decrepit little bed, cross your legs, and slowly lean back against the cold wall. You take a deep breath. Close your eyes. And vividly imagine yourself outside of this strange room. Gradually, you feel your essence pull away from your body. Until you are floating close to the ceiling. From this vantage point, you see yourself sitting motionless on the bed. You float along the ceiling, and then through the wall, and further on into a brightly lit hallway, lined with doors that look just like yours. You continue on and find yourself in a large community room. The television seems fairly new, but the couches, tables, and chairs appear to be at least 20 or 30 years old. As you drift through the open doors leading to the intensive care unit, you immediately see Matthew lying in a hospital bed, unconscious and on life support. You gently float in to see him, but quickly realize he's in a coma and unaware of your presence. Unconcerned, you float back out of the ICU and return to the community room. This time you notice a middle-aged woman with deep brown eyes and black curly hair streaked with gray, dressed in green scrubs and fluffy pink slippers. There is a deck of cards sitting on the table in front of her, and as you float closer, the woman looks directly at you. "Sit down, my dear. I'm Itzel. I've been expecting you." she says, hooking a chair with her foot and pushing it away from the table. You sit down. Without a word, Itzel shuffles the deck and spreads the cards out face down in a perfect arc on the table. Do you know you're playing a game? Do you remember asking me to do this for you a long, long time ago, before you were even born? Shaking your head, you say, I don't know what you're talking about. It's all right. Just remember it's all a game. Now go ahead and pick 3 cards, one at a time. Obediently, you point to a card, and itself flips over the death card. The picture shows Death himself portrayed as a skeleton wearing armor and holding a black flag with the Roman numerals XIII in white. His horse is carefully stepping over a dead man with a woman and child watching. Standing in front of the horse and rider is a bishop dressed in yellow paying homage to Death. With an inexplicable, penetrating look, Itzel says, You cannot resist death, nor conquer it. The white horse is a symbol that death is the ultimate purifier, like the sun that dies at night and is reborn every morning. It means you can die and be reborn fresh and new. But notice, this card is upside down. So the meaning is also reversed. Sudden, unexpected change is coming, and you must know that everything within you will resist that change. Death always includes transformation, but if you refuse to change, you will be trapped, stuck in limbo. Do you understand? You look at her blankly. Some hazy, distant part of you does understand, but you say nothing. Pick another card, darling. You point to the Hermit, which is also turned upside down. The card depicts an old man with a flowing white beard and shoulder-length white hair, dressed in a long gray cloak, standing alone on a snowy mountaintop, with a dark, bluish-gray sky in the background. He carries a staff in his left hand and holds aloft a lantern with a glowing 6-pointed star in the center. As you can see, this card is reversed, but in the upright position, it is a symbol of wisdom and the sharing of knowledge with others. More than anything, it represents a deep awareness of yourself, an awareness that can only be gained through isolation. But the meaning is reversed, which means you will not choose to be alone or go within. Your isolation will be unwelcome, forced upon you. There will be a separation from someone you care for deeply, and it will bring you overwhelming emptiness and pain if you resist. But notice, the hermit wears the gray cloak of invisibility, and in this very moment you are invisible to everyone but me. So there is potential here if you don't resist what is now happening. Without being asked, you point to a third card, and you're immediately relieved to see that finally one of the cards is upright, until you see that it's the devil. The card portrays a satyr, an unappealing creature, part man, part goat, with large horns sprouting from his head and gigantic vampire bat wings emerging from his back. From his feet protrude bat claws, rather than the typical toes or hooves, and he is perched high above a man and woman, both naked with tiny goat horns sprouting from their heads, and they have goat-like tails as well. They are chained to the podium where the devil sits, and also chained to each other. This doesn't look good, you say, shaking your head. With a sigh, Itzel says,
Yes, this one is challenging, no doubt.
This is just a game, right? You say uncertainly.
Yes, my dear, you are playing a game,
says Itzel reassuringly. Okay, go ahead and tell me what it means.
This card represents an actual person who, like a bat, sucks the life out of his prey. But in this case, it's not blood, but energy. He takes the life force of others, believing that the end somehow justifies the means. There is something about him that is irresistible, almost hypnotic. He may actually use hypnosis to get what he wants, and those that come near him are easily held within his power. The inverted pentagram above his head signifies dark intent and black magic.
Is there anything good about any of this? You say doubtfully. Itzel raises an eyebrow and says,
Well, look here at the man and woman. It appears they're being held captive against their will. But if you look more closely, you can see the chains around their necks are loose and could easily be removed. This means they're voluntarily in bondage.
This is the good news? You say impatiently.
It means you have a choice. This is actually the most important card for you to understand. On the one hand, you'll meet a man who embodies these things. But unlike the repulsive picture on this card, you may feel strangely drawn to him. He may be ultra charismatic. He may have certain characteristics that are much like your own. In other words, he won't look like a devil, but he will mirror to you all of your hopes and fears. It will be easy to feel like his victim, easy to blame him for what happens to you. But if you believe that to be true, you will fall completely under his control. You'll transfer your energy over to him and he will become more powerful, while your energy becomes more and more depleted.
But I thought you said we're playing a game, you say, feeling frightened and confused. This doesn't sound like any fun at all.
The trick to this game is to remember it's all your game, and you have a choice. You can play it according to someone else's rules, or play it by your own rules. You can get caught up in their version of reality, or you can choose to remain in your own.
Have we done this before? You say, blinking. I've dreamt of you before, haven't I? Your body begins shaking uncontrollably. Then suddenly, both Itzel and the room dissolve into complete darkness.